Okay, good morning everyone. So, this is where we were yesterday. Are there any questions or concerns regarding anything we have discussed so far in this proof? Right, so let's just do a quick recap. What are we trying to prove? We are trying to show that any non. Sorry, is there a question? No.
No, sir. Actually, I have a non-algorithmic proof. I have found a non-algorithmic proof to this problem.
Okay, okay, that's good. Okay, so we'll complete the proof and then we will see if there are any other alternative ways to get it. Okay. So let's just do a quick recap of where we were. We have a non-bipartite graph, right? And we want to show that there exists an odd cycle in this graph. The proof could be algorithmic or non-algorithmic. Okay. So, well, we started with reducing the problem to connected graphs, right? So, so the first step we did is this observation here. You can think of this as reduce the problem to connected graphs. In other words, we want to assume that our graph is connected without losing anything, right? So we observe that if the graph is non-bipartite, then at least one component has to be non-bipartite, right? So we can just look at that component and deal with that component. Another way to say it is you can basically assume that the graph is connected, right? We did not write it that way. We took a component and we are now going to show that this component has an odd cycle. Okay. So alternatively, we could assume that G is connected, right? That is another way to write the proof. Rather than taking a component, you just assume that the graph itself is connected. Okay? And now we have a connected graph H that is non-bipartite. So what we did is we took a spanning tree. Okay? Why? It will become clear very soon. But one, well, the graph is connected, so there exists a spanning tree, right? So we are taking a spanning tree of H. What does that mean? So we are continuing from here. So let me write now. So what does spanning tree mean? I just want to remind you, the vertices of T are all the vertices of H, which is, okay, right? And the other thing is the edges of T are a subset of the edges of H. Okay? So to give you an example, let's say, let's say I take this graph here. Supposing this is my H. Okay? And I've taken a spanning tree. Let me put one spanning tree in blue color or maybe green. So let's say I take a spanning tree of this graph, something like this. Okay? So what I have taken is I've taken all the vertices and I've taken a subset of the edges which will connect all the vertices without creating cycles, right? That is what a spanning tree is. Okay? Good. So now, what do we do at this point? Well, I gave you a hint, which was part of your do-it-yourself problems, is to show that any tree can be two-colored. Okay, so that's not difficult to prove. And if you got stuck, we can discuss this on Piazza. But I'm hoping that everyone was able to prove this. One way to do it is to proceed by induction, and that is related to your assignment 0, problem 1, part C. Okay, so this can be proved in many ways. One way to do it is using induction on the number of vertices of your graph, of your tree, for example. Okay? So, the point is that every spanning tree can be, or every tree for that matter, can be two colored. Since trees are two colorable, we may consider a two coloring of the tree. Okay, what does that mean? We are going to look at the tree, the spanning tree itself as our graph, and we are going to color its vertices using two colors. Let's say red and blue. Okay. So let me do that. So let's say I color this red, then I'll have to color the neighbors blue, then I will have to color this vertex with red, and this vertex will be red. Okay? And let me put blue color everywhere else. Okay? So what we have here is a two coloring of the tree. Notice that it is not a two coloring of the graph H. In fact, the graph H is not two colorable because it is non-bipartite, right? But every green colored edge that you see here joins a red vertex to a blue vertex. So it is a two coloring of the tree T. Okay? So our T is green colored. Okay? So now how do we complete the proof? Any ideas? We have a spanning tree of H and we have a two coloring of the tree, right? Using the colors red and blue. How do we complete the proof from this point? I want to find an odd cycle.
So first you need to show.
Yes.
It will be helpful to show that the coloring is unique. It may not be. I mean, it might be obvious, but
Okay,
maybe we
but
need
why
to
is
say
it
that.
helpful? Can
So
we
then,
not do without it?
so then we can consider each edge separately
Okay.
and show that if the edge, like consider edges that are not part of the spanning tree,
Okay.
and if they do not violate the conditions of the coloring, that is, if you're not able to find an edge between two vertices whose color is same,
Yeah.
then no odd cycle exists. Or the way to do it is, let's say, suppose this coloring is invalid, then there will exist an edge between two vertices of the same color,
Right.
and using that you can find the odds.
Exactly. Good. That is in fact the proof. So do we really need that the two coloring is unique? I mean, we have a two coloring. How will the uniqueness of it really give us some leverage?
Oh, so suppose the two coloring was not unique,
Yes.
then maybe there could have been like another coloring.
Sure, I get your point, but does it actually matter in this proof? So if I just show an odd cycle using some coloring, then am I not done?
So we already proved one way because if it contains an odd cycle. Okay.
Right. So we don't really need the fact that I mean, you are right. You can actually prove that the two coloring of any connected bipartite graph is unique. Okay, but we don't really need the uniqueness here. Okay, so what you said about the other edges, that is what we will do. So we have a two coloring. Okay, so let's take the colors of red and blue. So
Sir, I have a question.
yes, go ahead.
Sir, what do you mean by two coloring of a connected bipartite graph is unique?
Right. Basically, for a connected bipartite graph, if you consider two coloring, let's say red and blue. So let's say the red vertices are X and the blue vertices are Y.
Yes.
Then up to swapping X and Y, there is only one two coloring. The only thing you can do is you can color all the red vertices blue and color all the blue vertices red. But that is really the same thing, right? So the bipartition is unique.
Okay.
That can be proved easily. I might put it as one of the do-it-yourself exercises.
But
Or
sir, I have a side question. So in a bipartite graph, we can partition the vertex into two disjoint independent sets X and Y.
Yeah.
But it may happen that I partition the vertex set into two disjoint independent sets in it another way, and it another way. Means what I want to say
that's
is that
the only way that happens is when your graph is disconnected. So that's a good exercise to try yourself.
yeah,
You
yeah,
can-
that's the graph is disconnected
Right?
exactly.
Right. So actually, I'll put it as a do-it-yourself. This is actually a very good exercise. So, okay, thanks. This is helping me
But
create
sir,
some
can we
material. Yeah.
do the proof in this way? So if we take the tree and if we make the tree rooted at some vertex, say V. Now,
Uh-huh.
now we will consider this rooted tree to create a
Uh-huh.
vertex V. Now, I will give a two coloring of T in this way. So, the vertices which are at odd distance from the root will
Right.
get
So
the
you
same
are
color.
going into the details of the two coloring, right?
No, I am not going into
Uh-huh.
the details of the two coloring.
Okay.
What I am doing,
Uh-huh.
I am giving red colors to all the vertices which are odd distance from the root, and I am giving green color to all the vertices which are even distance from the
That's
root.
right. That's right.
And since this is two coloring of T and it cannot be two coloring of G because G is non-bipartite, so
Uh-huh.
there will exist a edge UV with the same color to the endpoints.
That's right. That's
That
right.
edge UV will form a cycle because I will
That's
take the
right.
nearest common ancestor of U and V and then I can define an odd cycle.
That's right. That's right. So we are basically going to write the same proof with at a slightly more abstract level. Rather than doing the routing and everything, we are going to take it at a slightly more abstract level. So it's just what the proof you said is exactly the proof we are writing down. It's just that I'm going to omit some details that make it more concrete,
Okay, okay, sir. Okay.
right? So here is a do-it-yourself exercise. Every connected bipartite graph admits a unique two coloring up to swapping of colors. So the only thing you can do is swap the two colors. Okay. Also, the do-it-yourself problem I write in the lectures, I often reword it when I am actually typing it down on Piazza. I do it for two reasons. One, because, well, mainly one reason, because I want you to be able to see different ways to state the same thing, right? So even if it doesn't sound exactly the same, the problem is actually the same. Okay, so let's say the colors of the vertex set of T, which is the same as the vertex set of H, are two colored using red and blue, as you see in our example. Okay, right? So we have a two coloring of the tree, right? Now, because the original graph H is non-bipartite, remember H is a non-bipartite component of G. This cannot be a two coloring of H. If all the edges of H join a red vertex to a blue vertex, then the H would have to be a bipartite graph. That is a contradiction, right? Note that since H is non-bipartite, there exists an edge E equal to UV. E has the ends U and V, such that U and V are both colored using the same color. Okay? Because if this is not true, then otherwise we have a two coloring of H. And that would be a contradiction because H is non-bipartite, right? So there are two vertices U and V which are joined by an edge. Remember, this edge is an edge of H, but not of T. So it is an edge of H minus the edges of T. In this drawing, for example, here is such an edge. Okay? So let's assume that the color is red because there is no difference between red and blue, of course. Okay, so we have two vertices of the tree. Let me make a drawing here. This is similar to the explanation Aranya was giving. He is constructing his tree like a rooted tree. So there is no such concept as a root of a tree. Root is basically a convenience concept. You can make any vertex the root, right? So in that drawing, something like this is happening. You have the red colored vertices and you have the blue colored vertices. Think of this as your tree T. Okay? And now, in the graph H, there are other edges, right? This is a spanning tree. So the vertex set is the same, but the graph H might have other edges. So one such edge has to join two blue vertices or two red vertices. Okay? So for example, you could have an edge like this. This is one edge. Okay? So we have taken such a vertex, such an edge, and now we want to find an odd cycle. So another exercise I gave you yesterday is that in any tree, there is a unique path between any two vertices. Okay? So we know that there exists a unique path P UV between the vertices U and V in the tree T. Let's go to our example here. So if this is U and this is V, there has to be a unique path in the tree, the green colored edges, which joins U and V. What is that path? Let's make it with green color. Let's make it double colored. So from U, you go like this, then you go like this, you go like this, and you go like this. That is your path PUV. Okay? And observe that this path, well, what does it look like? Let's draw this path. So this path well, it starts with a red vertex and it ends with a red vertex. Sorry, my bad. Well, that means that it is a path of odd length. Okay? And you have an edge in the graph joining U and V, which is your edge E. So now you have an odd cycle. Okay? Since U and V are both colored red, PUV is of odd length. What do I mean by length? Length of a path is number of edges. Okay? And that means that PUV plus the edge E, I often write plus. People
Right.
typically write union. But yeah.
UV is of even length because UV has even number of edges and odd number of vertices.
Right.
You're written
Yeah.
odd length.
Yes, my bad. Thank you. It's of even length because it has an odd number of vertices. Yeah, exactly. Okay, good. So it's of even length, right? Because it starts at a red vertex and it ends at a red vertex. So the number of vertices is odd, and so the number of edges is necessarily even, right? Okay. So that is an odd cycle. Right? So we have found the odd cycle, and thus H has an odd cycle, which means that the original graph G has an odd cycle because H is a component of G. Okay? So that is the end of our proof. Are there any questions or concerns? If you have any questions or concerns, this is a good time to ask, because while this is an important result, this is one of the easiest results we are going to see in this course, right? So I think we are going to see results that are much more non-trivial to prove as we go further, right? But this is one of the first results in graph theory that has implications to complexity theory, algorithms, etc. And it's a very structural result.
Sir, I understood the proof.
Okay.
But if you can say like a summary of the steps that we have used for proving this, it will be little more helpful to.
Sure. We can go over a quick summary.
Yes.
Any other questions or concerns?
Sir, I have a question.
Yes.
So, so this thing is not clear to me that why any connected bipartite graph admits a unique two coloring up to swapping of vertices. Can you explain this part once again?
Which one? Why any connected bipartite graph admits a unique two coloring?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Up to swapping of vertices. Yes.
So you want to understand why that is true?
Yeah.
No, that is a do-it-yourself. So if you are getting stuck, we can discuss on Piazza, right? I want everybody to get a chance to attempt it.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay? Okay. So it's not too difficult. Take some time, and if you are getting stuck, just initiate a discussion on Piazza. It will benefit everybody, I think. Okay?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Cool.
Okay, sir.
Any other questions or concerns? Okay, so let's quickly go through the steps of the proof, right? So the first, we want to prove the forward direction. We have a non-bipartite graph. We want to show that there is an odd cycle in this graph. So the first step is we reduce the problem to connected graphs, right? Again, these are the steps we followed. There are multiple proofs for any statement. So this is our first step. Reduce the problem to connected graphs, right? So we know that some component is non-bipartite, and we are going to focus on that component. So now we have a connected graph that is non-bipartite. Okay, good. So now our next step is to find an odd cycle in H, right? So this is our goal. So how did we do that? Well, we have a connected graph. So let's make use of connectivity to make our life easy. And one good thing about connectivity is that your graph will have a spanning tree. And spanning tree is good because you have all the vertices of the graph, but you are just missing some edges. So if you have a spanning tree, you might be able to make some progress on finding your cycle. Okay. Another thing is spanning trees are bipartite. So you can two color the vertices of a spanning tree or of any tree or forest for that matter. Right. So this is our, if you like, step 2. We took a spanning tree in the graph H with the intention of finding an odd cycle. Okay, so how do we go about finding the odd cycle? Well, we want to use our knowledge about bipartite and two-colored graphs. So let's take a two-coloring of this graph, the graph T, the spanning tree T, right? This is two-colorable, which means all the vertices of H have been given a color, because the vertices of H are the same as the vertices of T, right? So every vertex of H has received a color red or blue. If this is a valid two coloring of H, then we have a contradiction because the graph is non-bipartite. So this cannot be a two coloring of H. There has to be an edge which violates the coloring property, which means both ends have to get the same color, right? So you can think of this as our step 3 and the last step basically. This is our step 3. We found an edge that violates the two coloring that we already have, right? So we look at one such edge, and now we know that for this edge UV, there is a unique path in the tree that joins U and V, right? And we take that path along with our edge, and we have our odd cycle. Okay, is that clear?
Sir, all the edges may not violate this property.
Exactly. Some edges may not violate it. So, but there exists some edge which has to violate it because the H is non-bipartite. Right?
Okay, sir.
Right? There exists an edge. Right. So I generally don't like to write these symbols, and I suggest you also don't write them in your solutions. But I do it for the sake of saving some time. I prefer to use words because that they make more sense to me. Okay? Good. Any questions or concerns?
during our assignments and all, we can also put drawings like this, right, in our proof?
Okay, that is actually a very good point, and I want to take the opportunity to answer that in detail. So drawings are helpful for as illustrations, and even in graph theory research papers, it is common, and I would say I would even encourage to use drawings to make it easy for the reader to read. However, if your drawings were to be omitted from your solution, I should still be able to understand your mathematical argument. So do not use drawings as a crutch, because drawings can also be misleading. So your argument should be complete without the drawings as far as possible. Okay? So use drawings only to help the reader, but do not use drawings as a replacement for your text. So in what I have written today, you can go through it and you can omit all the drawings and read it, and I can assure you that it will still look like a correct proof to you. You will be convinced, and you can make the drawings yourself. Right? So I'm not against using drawings, but I want to make sure that they are not misused. They should not be used as a replacement for text. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. But sir, in some cases, we can use proof by construction kind of techniques, right? So in such cases, are we allowed to use drawings to?
Yeah, you should be able to explain your entire construction in words, and then you can give drawings to accompany your explanation. Right? So anything you explain, you should strive as much as possible to do it all in words and put the drawings just to help the reader and to make your solution look nicer and more elegant and more accessible.
Okay,
Does
sir.
that make
Thank
sense?
you. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Good. Right. So I'm definitely not against using drawings. I use a lot of drawings to explain things, but please try to not rely on drawings too much. I still want to be able to read your solutions just in text format, and the arguments should fit together. Okay. Any other questions or concerns? Okay. So since we took some time to talk about complexity theory yesterday, I want to have a very small discussion on the algorithmic side of this theorem. But for the rest of this course, I will not be dwelling on complexity and algorithmic issues too much. Right? We will focus on the graph theory, and I want to give you sufficient background in these two lectures so that you can figure out the algorithmic and complexity theory side by yourself if you're interested. Right? But that is not the focus of our course here. So this problem, our decision problem that you may recall from yesterday, decide whether a graph is bipartite or two-colorable, right? We know it is in NP. We know it is in co-NP because of theorem 4.7. Because if your graph is not bipartite, you can show an odd cycle. How do you find an odd cycle? That is not a concern of NP and co-NP. That is an algorithmic concern, which is about the complexity class P. Okay? So because there is an odd cycle, you can show it to your friend, and now your friend can verify that this is indeed an odd cycle, and therefore the graph is non-bipartite, right? So if your friend believes the theorem, then your friend cannot argue with you that the graph is bipartite, right? It is not bipartite. So this is why the problem is in co-NP. Is the problem in P? Is it polynomial time solvable? In other words, is there an efficient algorithm that takes as input a graph and decides correctly whether the graph is bipartite or not? And when it decides, at the end, it should also give you the certificate. If it is bipartite, it will give you a two coloring. If it is non-bipartite, it will give you an odd cycle. Okay? So, in other words, can we turn this proof into an algorithm? The theorem 4.7, it is a forward direction. Remember, we are trying to do co-NP. So we take a non-bipartite graph. Can we find an odd cycle in polynomial time or efficiently? Okay, I won't go into the order n squared and all those things, right? I'm not interested in the big O notation here. Intuitively, it should look efficient, and that is good enough for our course here, for our discussion actually. So anybody? Can you
Sir,
turn this proof into an algorithm?
Sir, what we can do, we can find a spanning tree,
Exactly.
first spanning tree of G, and now if tree is a bipartite graph connected, so by that proposition, any connected bipartite graph admits unique two coloring. So there are only possible two distinct two colorings up to swapping of colors. So let the first two coloring be C1 and the second two coloring be C2. Now,
You're taking two colorings.
yeah, because a tree always has two colorings.
Oh, okay. But why do you need two colorings for your algorithm?
No,
Can
okay,
you not do it
actually,
with one coloring? Two
no,
coloring.
no, actually, I have an algorithm which doesn't use a spanning tree. I can also
Okay.
use BFS. If I run the
No,
BFS,
so first I want to try to convert this proof into an algorithm and then we can discuss other possibilities, right? So
okay,
let's first try to convert this proof into an algorithm and then we can look at other algorithms for the same.
okay. So if so, T is the spanning tree of G, and T
Okay?
has a two coloring.
Okay?
So if the graph is bipartite, so now I am taking a two coloring of T.
Mhm.
Now with respect to this two coloring, if it
Mhm.
happens that all the edges of G have
Mhm.
both endpoints different colors,
Exactly.
then we are done. Then
Right.
that is the two coloring. But if not, then there must exist an edge with the same endpoints,
Right.
whose endpoints are of the same color, and that will give me an odd cycle.
Exactly. And that we can find all efficiently, right? You agree?
Yes. All
Right.
efficiently.
Okay. So let's go through the steps quickly. Uh, So someone might say, well, what if my graph is disconnected? Let's worry about that later. Let's take a connected graph first. Okay, supposing I have a connected graph, then as in the proof, take a spanning tree. Everybody knows that spanning tree can be done in polynomial time, right? You've probably seen in your algorithms courses. If you haven't, assume it can be done and you can read about it offline. You can find a spanning tree in polynomial time. Okay, so which means that you have the spanning tree for your graph and you can two color it. Coloring a tree is very easy. Root it at some vertex and do as Aranya said before. Color all the vertices at odd levels with red color and color all the vertices at even levels with blue color. If you like, you can just go by neighbors. Take a vertex, color it red, color its neighbors blue, color the neighbors red, and proceed like that until the whole tree is colored. Okay? So you got a two coloring of your spanning tree, and we assume that the original graph was connected. Okay? Now look at all the edges which are in the graph but not in the tree. If they all join a red vertex to a blue vertex, then output that the graph is bipartite and output the two coloring you already found. Otherwise, you will find some edge when you do your scanning through the edges. Then you will find some edge which has the same color on both ends, like U and V, right? And now in the tree, you find the unique path that can be done efficiently. In any tree, you can find the path between two vertices efficiently. And you take that path along with your edge and you have your odd cycle. Done. And your graph is not bipartite. Okay? So that solves the problem for connected graphs. How would you do it for disconnected graphs?
We already discussed this anyway. You can just consider each connected component separate.
Exactly. Consider each component one by one. If all components are bipartite, output that the graph is bipartite. If there is any component that is non-bipartite, then you stop the algorithm there and you report the odd cycle, the whole graph is non-bipartite. Okay? Good. So this proof that we discussed, it's basically a constructive proof. It doesn't look like one, but if you go through it carefully, you can see how to get an algorithm out of it. And that will happen for many other proofs in this course. There are some proofs for which it will not happen, but for many of them, you can actually convert them into algorithms. Sometimes you have to do some additional work, sometimes you have to do a lot more additional work. But in general, you will see a lot of constructive proofs in the course. Constructive meaning can be converted into algorithms easily. Okay?
Sir,
Yes, go ahead.
sir, there can be multiple spanning trees for a given connected graph, no, sir. So,
That is true, yes.
so we need to perform verification for each of these, or
What do you think? Do we need to check for each spanning tree in our algorithm that we looked at? Or does it work by just looking at one spanning tree?
Sir, it is sufficient to check for loop for one spanning tree only, because if for one spanning tree the algorithm returns an answer, then for another spanning tree it must return the same answer. Because the
Right.
presence of the odd cycle in the graph G doesn't depend on the which spanning tree I'm taking.
Right. So basically, we are saying that we are basically trying to prove that the algorithm is correct. And the reason the algorithm we discussed is correct is because it always concludes with a yes certificate or a no certificate. If you give it a bipartite graph, of course, it will not find an odd cycle. So all the steps that you are performing, it will basically end up finding a two coloring. So you have to argue. I am not writing down this argument because this is not a course about algorithms, right? So you have to argue that look at every step. If your graph is bipartite, it will basically end up finding a two coloring. And if your graph is not bipartite, then definitely you will not find a two coloring that is correct for this graph. So when you look at the edges of that are not in the spanning tree, there will always be an edge that joins two vertices of the same color. Otherwise, your graph is bipartite, right? So you will always find such an edge, and then you will find an odd cycle. So in all the inputs, your algorithm terminates either with a two coloring that is a correct two coloring, or it terminates with an odd cycle, right? So there is no need to consider other spanning trees. They will all give you the same answer because your graph is still the same,
Oh, okay, sir. Okay.
right? But no, that is definitely something you address when you prove the correctness of the algorithm, right? So the correctness of the algorithm proof takes care of these things.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, good, good. Any other questions or concerns?
Then this algorithm is polynomial solvable, right?
Yeah, so I'm not going into polynomial time details, but you can check that all the steps we did are polynomial time doable. Right? So you can solve the problem in polynomial time. So in other words, the decision problem 0 is in P. Right? So we first argued that it is in NP, then we used the theorem to argue it is in co-NP, and now we converted the theorem into an algorithm, and we used it to prove that it is in polynomial time. We did not write down all the details of the algorithm and its correctness, but we discussed it at an intuitive level. And for those of you who are interested, you can figure out the details yourself. So just to remind you, P is a subset of NP intersection co-NP. There is a beautiful conjecture in complexity theory. I would say I like it even more than P versus NP conjecture, which says that P is equal to NP intersection co-NP. Right? So that's a very beautiful conjecture which we don't know. I would think that the conjecture is true, but who knows? Any other questions or concerns? Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, I have a question. So this conjecture P equal to NP intersection co-NP, is it equivalent in some sense to the P versus NP conjecture?
I don't think so.
PNP.
They are not equivalent conjectures as far as I know. But again, I'm not a complexity theorist. As far as I know, they are not equivalent conjectures. This is a conjecture of independent interest.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, sir, this conjecture says that till now we do not know any problem which does not belong to P but belongs to NP intersection co-NP.
Till now, yeah, exactly. I mean,
There is-
we are not able to prove it, right? So there could be
Yeah.
problems. I'll have to investigate further. There could be problems that are known to be in NP intersection co-NP, but we just don't know a polynomial time algorithm for it,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So, yeah. Good.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns? So we don't have too much time left today. We have another 10 minutes to go. So maybe I'll just spend some time on a few definitions that I want to use in the next lecture and give some motivation for the same. Let me start a new page. What do I want to call it? Let's see. Okay. For now, let me just call it cycles. We are going to talk a bit about cycles. Okay. So before we talk about cycles, let's talk about paths for a few minutes. So basically, where are we heading? We are heading towards Eulerian tours, which I believe most of you would have seen in your previous courses. Is there anyone who has not heard of Eulerian tours or Eulerian circuits or something like that? Is there anyone who has not heard of these topics? Let me know so that I know to what detail I need to go. You can raise your hand if you haven't studied these topics ever.
Sir, by Eulerian tour, do you mean Eulerian path?
Right, so Eulerian tour is basically you want to go through all the edges of the graph and you want to come back to the first vertex without using any edge a second time. All edges have to be used exactly once and you come back to the first vertex.
So basically, it is a closed walk, visiting every edge exactly once.
Exactly, exactly.
Sir, we can name it a circuit also, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Tour
So
as
there are different terms used for it. It's generally Eulerian tour or Eulerian circuit or something like that. So if you have studied this, then it's okay. But if you haven't, then please raise your hand. Okay, it seems everybody has seen this. Don't worry. I don't expect you to remember it. I just want to use it to motivate the next topic. Okay, so we are going to take a different viewpoint of the same topic because you have seen it before. So we are going to take a different viewpoint in this course. Okay, so that is our target. Today we will not get there. Today we will just do some basic definitions. Okay, so probably you all have heard of the following terms: paths, trails, and walks. Okay, so we know what a path is. A path basically looks like this. Okay, for trail and walk, we will need some graph to do examples. This is a graph I really like, as you can see. So I don't write down formal definitions of everything. Not a big fan of formal definitions all the time. So if you want to write down a formal definition of a path, you would write something like this. You start at a vertex V0. It's a sequence of vertices and edges. V0, E1, V1, E2, V2, blah, 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 En, Vn, or maybe Ek, Vk. Okay, such that all the vertices are distinct and every edge Ei joins Vi minus 1 and Vi. Okay, so every edge Ei joins Vi minus 1 and Vi. This is a path in a graph. What is a trail? A trail is also a sequence of vertices and edges. Okay, except that now you are allowed to repeat vertices, but you are not allowed to repeat edges. Okay, so let me give you an example of a trail. So I could start at 0, I could come here, I could go like this, then I could go here, I could go back to 0, and I could now go to 2. So for example, in this drawing, you start at 0, then you go to 3, then you go to 4, 1, then you go to 0, and you go to 2. Notice that I have only written the vertices. Because this is a simple graph, I don't need to write down the edges. The edges are clear. It's 0, 3, 3, 4, 4, 1, 1, 0, 0, 2. Okay? You can just look at it as a sequence of ordered sequence of vertices if your graph is simple. And otherwise, you can look at it as a sequence of ordered sequence of edges. Then you can extrapolate the vertices from there. Okay? So there are many different ways to look at it. And when you write down a formal definition, it generally fixes you to one viewpoint. It doesn't allow you to see the different ways to look at the same thing. Okay? That's another reason I don't write down formal definitions for these things. Okay, so what is allowed? You are allowed to repeat vertices, but you are not allowed to repeat edges. So repeat vertices allowed, but not edges. Okay? And walk is the most general thing in the world. You can repeat vertices, edges, and you can do whatever you like. Okay? So for instance, I can draw the same graph and I can give you a walk. So let's draw a walk in green color. Maybe I'll start at 1, go to this. I'll come back to 1. I will go here. I will go like this. And I will come back and use this edge again. I would not have been able to use an edge if I was drawing a trail. But in a walk, I can repeat edges and vertices both. Right? So I won't write down the particular walk I drew here. But I will just write down the key point. It's a similar to trail, but you are allowed to repeat vertices and edges both. Clearly, every walk is a trail and every trail is a path. Sorry, my bad. No, every path is a trail and every trail is a walk, right? Good. Any questions or concerns about paths, trails, and walks?
Sir, so if we go back and forth and arbitrary many
Yeah,
times,
you
so
can do
is
that in
there
a walk. Yeah, in a walk you can
Walk.
go back and forth whatever you'd like.
It is just a sequence of adjacent vertices, I think.
Yes, you can think of it as just a sequence of adjacent vertices if your graph is simple. That's right. If your graph is not simple, then you have to specify which particular edge you are using between any two vertices. Right?
So if the graph is not simple, then it may happen that some vertex has a loop, then we can traverse that loop arbitrary many number of times.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, but
that's
if
correct.
we take a trail, then we have to, if we traverse the loop, we have to do it exactly once. We cannot do more
Yes,
than
that's
once.
correct. Exactly. Exactly. Good. Okay. So that clarifies some things about paths, trails, and walks. So I like to, I mean, you might think this is a bit arbitrary. I like to remember it like this. You know, if I go out for a walk in a garden, I don't care if I traverse the same path multiple times, go to the same intersection. You can think of intersections as vertices and any road joining two intersections as a edge joining those two, right? So I don't care how I walk in a garden. But if I go to a park where I have to go to different trails, right? When you go for hiking, for example, then you might come to the same intersection multiple times, but you probably will not cover the same trail again and again. So in a trail, you can come to the same vertex, but you cannot use the same edges again, right? And in a path, well, a path is a path. It's very clear, right?
Sir, so in a
Yeah.
multi-graph,
Mhm.
where we have loops, so a path cannot contain a loop edge.
Exactly. By definition, a loop cannot belong to a path anyways.
Because then two of its endpoints are the same, but in a path, vertex cannot repeat. That's why.
Exactly, exactly. So now that we know paths, trails, and walks, so we know paths, trails, and walks, right? So what we can now define is what happens when the two endpoints are the same. Well, in a path, we don't allow the endpoints to be the same. If we do, then we get a cycle, right? So if the two endpoints are the same, you will actually get a cycle. You can think of a cycle as a closed path. But in general, a cycle is not a path. In the same sense, if a trail ends and starts at the same vertex, then we will call it a closed trail. And if a walk ends and starts at the same vertex, then we'll call it a closed walk. Okay? So basically, this just means that same as before, but start vertex is the same as the end vertex, right? Otherwise, these definitions are exactly the same as paths, trails, and walks. We are just adding an additional constraint. Okay? Any questions or concerns? Okay. Good. So now I want to tell you what an Euler trail is. And what an Euler tool is. Okay? Using these terms that we have already used, they are defined. So in an Euler trail, we will use every edge exactly once. Okay? So it is a trail where each edge is used. Remember, in a trail, you cannot repeat edges. So using an edge means using it exactly once. Okay? And an Euler tour is a closed trail with the same property. I'll give you examples of both so that you can visualize it. Again, because it is a trail, using it means it is used exactly once. Okay, so let's take a quick example.
So the only difference is that the Euler trail need not be closed.
Exactly. The only difference is the closed property.
Closeness for Euler tool is always closed. No.
Exactly. So this graph here, can anybody tell me whether this has an Euler trail or an Euler tour or neither or both? What does Euler trail mean?
It has a
Visually
trail,
it
but
means, yeah.
it does
okay.
not have a tool.
Okay, great. That is the correct answer. Before you tell me your trail, let me just point it out visually to everybody. A trail means you can draw, you put the vertices on your drawing. Now you should be able to draw all the edges without lifting your pencil and without ever redrawing on the same point. Okay, so you should be able to draw it without lifting your pencil and never making an edge darker. Because if you draw it again, you will make it darker, right? So you can't do that. So can somebody tell me what is the Euler trail for this graph? What is an Euler trail for this graph?
Yeah.
Sir, I think the
Okay.
Euler trail must have the 2 endpoints 0 and 1 because they are the vertices of odd degree.
Okay, good. Okay,
And
so
the
I will
other
put the
one-
vertices and now tell me what the trail is.
1,
Yeah,
4.
the endpoints of the trail would be
Okay.
0 and 1, and the
Okay.
other, so the trail would be basically from
Okay.
1, 4,
Yeah, 1,
0,
4, 0.
2,
Yeah,
1, 3, 0.
okay. So 1, 4, 0, 2, 1, 3, 0. Something like this?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so you can try drawing it on your own. Try on your own without lifting the pencil. Okay, good. So this is an Euler trail, and now maybe I'll just give it to you as an exercise. Okay, so maybe get an example of a graph. Draw a non-trivial. I won't define what non-trivial means. Example of a graph that has an Euler tour. Okay. So some of you may recall which graphs have Euler tours. Anyone?
Yeah.
Even graph.
Yes.
Okay. What's the main property?
Even degree vertices.
Exactly. Good. So if you have forgotten about Euler tours, please revisit your previous courses on Euler tours. We will discuss it again later, next lecture, next week. But what we will do is we will take a completely different viewpoint to getting for getting to Euler's result. In fact, our main goal will not be Euler's result. It will be a related result called Veblen's result. Okay, so that's our next goal. Any questions or concerns?
So which result we will prove in the next class?
Right, so we will go towards, so I'll maybe write it down here. It's called Veblen's theorem. I think it is in chapter 2 of Bondi Murthy, but you can also read it in other sources. Okay, so what we will do is we will take a slightly algebraic viewpoint. It will still be all very structural results, but we will use some algebra to visualize things even better and to get a sort of a different way to think about cycles. And we will relate cycles to another concept very soon called cuts of a graph. Okay? Any questions or concerns? The lecture is officially over. I think I took some extra time. Sorry for that. I'll stop recording now.